And we are live.
And we are all alive.
That's right. Well, we got you could start off by saying we got Patrick Vaugn on the show. Welcome, Patrick.
Welcome, Patrick.
Hello.
Miss you during expeditions, but anyway, I'm gonna kick you off. Go ahead, Kevin. You go for it. I'll be back.
So, Patrick here's probably been seen on a Bigfoot Explorer quite a few times. Been out in expedition with both Scott and Christy several times. Had pretty incredible encounters from what I hear also. He's an avid hunter, been hunting his whole life. And for the last 17 years, he's been studying a family. Patrick, how did you get into this topic?
Well, first off, I was never a believer in Bigfoot. I was taught that I was the biggest, baddest thing in the woods, that a Bigfoot was a myth or a wives' tale. And I spent a lot of time in the woods hunting, fishing my whole life, my whole childhood, until 2003 when I met something that shouldn't have been there. I met a myth. I met a wives' tale that wasn't supposed to exist, but there it was. It was real, and that opened my mind to the possibility that this is real. You know, because you know how you see something, but you're like, "There's no way that's real."
Yeah.
You know, you wrap your head around it, and I've been into primitive living skills and primitive survival for close to 20 years. It's hunting, fishing, tracking, trapping, camping, everything primitive that you want to do. That's it. And of course, you know, I just got into that and had a blast. But doing that, I wound up. I grew up hunting the old ways. You know, grandmother was off the reservation up in Oklahoma. I grew up hunting old ways, but then I went to modern, and once I got into primitive living skills, I went back to the old ways, and that's when I found something that wasn't supposed to be in there. And I spent 17 years, 16 of them just with a tracking partner or one other person, no more than one other person, really investigating and learning. And the first off, I had to have a scientific, pragmatic way to approach it. Are they real? All right, to prove they're real, I took the knock away from the phenomenon known as Bigfoot, and I investigated the knock. If I can break the knock, if I can debunk it, then Bigfoot isn't real. And that's what I was after, is to debunk Bigfoot. And I spent several years knocking, and it was easy. I'd go out and knock and get knock responses. But I used a what I call single knock theory I developed off of watching another guy use a knock and was successful one time with it. So I took single knock out and I would use it, and it was so easy. I really thought there was a nocturnal bird or a habit of a known bird that would nocturnally knock at you, you know, that wasn't recorded. That was my side of it. The other person with me was, it's a Bigfoot. It's a Bigfoot. I'm like, you know, I can't jump to that conclusion until he called one into the firelight, and three of us are standing there watching what came knocking in. We're watching this at the firelight. We saw her full body. This is a real being. It really knocked, and that was 2011, and that solidified that this is a real being. And it took till 2017 until I felt confident enough and educated enough to be able to talk about the being, you know. And I told my best friend, who was a primitive survivalist, and there's way better people in that community than I am. It's not like I'm special, but that community, pretty much the head people of that community banned me from speaking about it there. And so I said, well, you know what? There is another community So I reached out of the primitive survival, primitive living skills, primitive history groups into the Bigfoot community, and Scott J. Owens was the one that I connected with, and that was about 14 months ago. And so I started tracking for him, and of course he was like anybody else, well, you're full of it. I don't think you can do what you say you can do. And I said, that's right. It's fine. I understand believing. I understand belief and non-belief because I struggled with that for years. You don't have to believe me. Come out with
I'll
it.
show you. Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah.
And so first expedition, I said, okay, here's little Sam's track. Here's Sausage track. I'm tracking them along here. And then we started finding another small track. I said, wow, I think there's a second sibling here. And I actually confirmed that this year there is another. He does have a smaller sibling there. And I actually got audio of it. I think it was May. I got audio of that little one running and screaming,
Just like kids do.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Everything they do and everything they don't do tells you something. If you go out and fail at something, if you go out and you do something that fails, there's something to be learned from that. If you go out and something is successful, there's something to be learned from that. So if you use both those ways of learning and making observations, you can make a lot of great observations.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. Go ahead.
When was your first encounter?
My first encounter, I was deer hunting in 2003, and I'm sitting in a stand, and I'm even with two ridge lines, and I'm about dead even in the middle of them. I'm overlooking this great deer hunting area. In my mind, Bigfoot is not even a blip on the radar. It's a wives' tale. It's a myth. And I'm sitting there, and the woods are dead. I'd woke up late. I'd got there, did a midday hunt. It's now like 4:30 in the afternoon. It's a pretty day. And this mosquito landed on my chin. I'm all camoed up in a climbing stand. I just took my hand and ever so slowly did that. And the brush broke. And something took off running, and I didn't know what it was. But as it was running, it was going knock, 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 all the way out of hearing, all the way for about 100 yards or 200 yards. I just kind of lost out on hearing it, and I couldn't figure out. I thought I went through everything it could have been. I thought maybe it was a big buck with a rack that was running through the brush hitting, but because it was maybe three. I went through all the scenarios that it could possibly be. And then, I was going to hunt till dark, after dark, but I didn't have my light on me. So I get down, I stash my stand. I pick my way up on this dry wash drainage area between these bridges. And when I got to get to an area and I have to turn right and go up this hill. And I got to go up this hill, and it crests over hill, and about another 40 yards is this dim road. Well, when I get to where I make a turn at, it felt like something hit me in the back. It was just bam, something's wrong. And I could feel the heat of a stare. I felt heat on my right shoulder and back. And as I turned, I thought, this is weird. I'm pretty good in the woods. I'm well trained. As I turned, I felt it steadily coming. It moved from my shoulder to my chest. I did a complete 360. The stare never changed the direction from which it was coming from. I said, well, that is weird. So I said, well, the inside of me is a little freaked out, but I said, well, it's okay. We're going to make a right, go up this hill. And we get up, maybe 10, 15 yards up this hill, and I hear something run behind me, cross that dry wash, and it goes out to my left. It actually goes about 30 yards out and then circles back in through the brush, and it's traveling with me. And I'm like, man, this is weird. I'm not worried. I'm well armed. Plenty of daylight to fight my way out of something if I got to. and I'm trying, and it's staying with me, and I'm trying to catch what it is. Finally, I can't catch it. It's almost like it's watching me and then jumping from base to tree and using the brush. Well, there was a little hole in the brush, and there was a tree, and I walked up, and I took a half a step, and I was standing on one leg, and I looked, and in mid jump, with her right foot extended outward, her left foot behind her, there was a female, hairy, two-legged being that was not supposed to exist. I can still see the hair on her foot, top of her foot, moving in the breeze as she was in mid-leap. And she's not looking at me. She's looking at the ground. That's one trait I noticed about them is they don't multitask. They'll do this, and they'll do that, and they'll do this. But, they don't multitask much. When they're moving, they're moving. And so she's landing where she's going to look. She's landing where she's looking where she's going to land at. And I'm on one foot with my eyes this big. And I don't know if my mouth was open or not, but I'm watching this being, sailing through the air, lands on her right foot, and she's reddish, dark red orange color, dark reddish. She hit and she bounced, and she landed just a foot or two before she got behind the next big pine. And the sun was coming in, from that direction. And so when she bounced behind that tree, it lit her up, and I could see all the colors in her hair. I could see the split ends on her hair. The last little bit of her hair was split ends, almost a strawberry blonde color, almost white blonde color towards the end. And she bounced behind that tree, and I almost fell. My feet didn't know which direction to go. My mind told one foot to do one thing. My mind said, do something to the other, stand still, run. And both of them tried to do the same thing, and I almost fell. And so I went to stumbling uphill. And so I caught myself into a jog. I had to match my speed. I was falling. And so I'm jogging. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to quit jogging now. So I'm jogging up this hill. And she's still out there, tree to tree in the brush. And I'm like, well, I'm thumbing through my Rolodex. I've been all over doing, primitive living skills. And I teach, knife only classes, and I've been around bear and mountain lion and wolf. And I actually had a wolf, pet wolf, cow. I know my animals. And I rolled through my Rolodex of animals. And the only thing that came up that she matched was a book I read in a library when I was a kid about Bigfoot. That's the only thing it matched. And I said, oh my God. It lasts, this encounter lasts a while. I jog up the hill. I'm planning out how to get away from it, trying to figure her strategy out. And her strategy was perfect. She was 15 yards to the left of me, 10 to 15 yards behind me. And she knew what direction was out for me. And if we had continued the same speed, we had intersected up in that damn road. And so, well, how do I get away from her? I'm listening, well, she doesn't know. I bet she's never seen a human run. I bet she hasn't had a whole lot of experience with humans. And I used to train horses. You know how you train horses in a round pen? They won't listen. You get them going. You get them going. And you're standing there, and you're just letting them go until they want to, until you and it wants the same thing, and that means to stop. And when they break that gate the first time, you can't let them stop. You got to drive them, let them know that you're making them do what you want them to do by pressure. Right. Well, I'm listening for her gate. She has to pause to confirm where I'm going, which direction I'm going.
You got to listen. You got to stop and listen.
That's right. She's going to be watching me. So when she pauses, I'm going to leap in the road and take off. So we crush the hill. I get 10 yards.
Sorry.
I like
motorcycle going down the street.
Yeah. But I get 5 yards from this little dim road, and I'm almost a mile back. She pauses. I jump out the road, and I hang a left, and I boogie. I'm gone. And I make the 15-yard connection. I pass that up another 15 yards. And I look back, and she runs out, and she takes her feet and she scuffs them on the ground, kicking leaves and pine straw and looking at me. And then, you know, I hit a pretty good gear after that. I swapped hands. I swapped my weapon to another hand, and I'm gone. And there was a tree that was about 44 inches off the ground. I had to stop, climb over. I cleared it. And I'm running down it. But, you know, by the time I get there, before I get to that tree, about 10 yards from that tree, she catches up with me. Okay. And it sounded like her feet, her legs didn't work like mine. Her legs were choppy. They were, when she started up running, it was, and she caught me. And she's running in the woods, and it's like she's stomping her. She sounded like a freight train coming through.
Almost like a kid's cartoon where you see them running fast, but their feet are just going in a perfect circle.
Yeah,
you know,
that's about what it was.
You know,
that's what it was. And she catches up. She's right beside me, just right when I leap over that tree, and she stays beside me. And she's running through this. There's this wispy brush on the side of the road. She's running through this green spindly stuff, and it's whipping her. And I can see her hands knocking some of it out of the way, but it's whipping her like a switch. And her hands, I looked at her hands, and this part is about 10% longer than mine, and her fingers are about that much longer than mine. And you could see them doing this, running through the brush. And she's, and I'm just saying, oh my God, what she want, you know? And I'm running, and I hit a place that I recognize, this dog leg in the road. I said, I'm 150 yards off my truck. And about that time, she's peeling off, and I look over. I say, oh, thank God. And I notice what she's doing, and she's staying in that brush. She's taking that brush line all the way around because it's just clear trees, you know, for about a 40-yard circle in there, you know, 40 yards away. So she's running around a circle in the brush line, and I got a dead shot through this damn road. And she and I saw where the brush met up at the trailhead at the same time. Because I look and I see where the brush is at that I never really paid attention to. I look over at her, and she goes, I mean, she takes off faster. And I don't know where I caught this gear at, but I'm going to tell you what, you ever run so fast you're squatted low to the ground? I wasn't up in there. I mean, I was squatted low to the ground. I looked like Speedy Gonzalez running. And I was running like a deer. And if you ever see a deer low to the ground, he's moving.
He's booking.
And I get up close to that where the trailhead is, and she's coming around. She's making a curve, coming up and straightening out, coming right in that trailhead, and I passed 10 yards in front of her. And I jumped. And when I passed, the stare that I felt, that was what was the most intriguing. So when I passed front, I looked to my left, and I saw her eyes. And the light was reflecting out of her eyes. The sunlight was reflecting in her eyes. They're so bright. And I could see her. You know, I saw her face, but I was really focused on her eyes. And I passed. I leapt out. I was trying to hit the road. I actually landed in the ditch and twisted my right ankle. I snatched my keys out. Because if I'd have fell, I was just going to roll over and shoot, but I didn't. But I jumped in my F-250. It's got Granny in second, you know. I threw it in second, dumped the clutch, and that truck was lunging and throwing gravel, and she never moved. She just sat there. And I got a quarter mile down the road, and I said, there's no way to happen. No way in this world was that real. And I had 2 years of nightmares after that. I was on that road for 2 years with nightmares in my dreams before I could put that to bed and chalk it up to something that would never happen again. There's no way that'll ever happen again. It didn't happen the first time. I'm good. They don't exist. And that was the first time I ever had an encounter.
You were talking about how when you looked at her, you were fixated on her eyes because of the eye shine. And the best way I can explain it, it's like a light bulb that's on, but doesn't emit any light to the surrounding area like a light bulb would. It's just there. It's so bright, so bright. with their eye shine.
Yeah, it was. Things were good for about 2009 after the second encounter. And that's when I admitted to myself there is, because scientifically, if you produce the same product with the same situation, it's not a fluke.
Right.
Okay. If you can get a chemistry set and do the same thing, come out the same solution every time, works out to the same product, it's not a fluke. So, and that's when little boy wanted to go. He wanted to go find Bigfoot, and I wanted to go debunk Bigfoot, and he won. We found.
But he did real quick.
Yeah, he called one into the firelight. Person I was dating was there. The person I was dating was like me. They don't exist. This finding Bigfoot thing my little boy is doing is a fantasy. It's we're just kind of giving him something to do that he wants to do. And I told her, we have this knock that comes in, and we've done it for a couple of years, having knocks come in, and then this one, and it's the same female that lives up there today. She's still there today. She comes in, and we see her. All three of us see her. And so that was the first time I said, okay, the real beings. I know what is knocking at me in these woods. The knock is real. The being is real. Bigfoot really exists. Sasquatch is real. And we left. And that was a disturbing thing for me because I didn't want them to be. I was an adamant. I would laugh you off of a campfire if you even brought the subject up. Naysayer. Okay. And so it turned my world upside down. And so, if they'd left me alone, I'd left them alone, but it seemed like they wouldn't. So I started studying them. And I've got a lot of great insight on them and learned a lot about their knocks and level intelligence, things they do, they don't do. I've been trying to put together a gender-specific behavior, a clan-specific behavior, a geographical-specific behavior study that I've, and along with, and this one bit me in the butt, an individual-specific behavior, because not every one of them is the same. And
right.
So I've been working on putting that together, and it's it gets kind of funky. It's kind of a funky way to approach stuff. There's never a never, and there's never an always. You can go on a loose base line on about what you think they're going to do, and about time you get them, you think you got them figured out, they hand your butt to you again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way it's been.
Yeah. They're always keeping us researchers on our toes.
Yeah. And I would literally roll my eyes at Bigfoot researchers up until 2003. I would. I had a guy in another community on a fire talking about it, and I was asinine. And I had to apologize to that man 3 years later. When I come across him again, I told him I apologize. And he looked at me, he goes, oh, and I told him why. And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, really? And I didn't have to say what happened. He knew what happened. He goes, oh, okay, we're cool.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the way it's been. And I never was going to come out. I was never going to come out with what I come up with, because what I was looking for is how to avoid them. But there became a safety issue with me being out with, people in my other community being out with limited firepower, sometimes only a knife, and I've had these beings come up and watch us. And so a safety concern came up. How safe are we out there? And so I wanted to put this study out there, and that's where I found another show, and he put a lot of the things that I found at that time on the show. and put it out there for people to see and hear. Because I don't do this. I don't care about a camera, and I don't care about notoriety. I don't care about popularity. What I've been doing is putting out a study. I've been putting out the word that when you go in the woods, what you need to understand is whether you believe in them or not. And this is for any non-believer watching. If you don't believe in them, that's fine. They know about you and they study you when you go in the woods. And if you're not careful, you can have a real bad encounter. They're real. They watch you. They study you. Any WMA, private big deer lease, whatever you're on, when you go in, they study your behavior. They study what you do. They know what your individual tendencies are. You're going to put your head down on the trail. You're going to go in for a quarter to half a mile. You're going to sit there. You're going to watch the birds, scratch your butt, listen to the wind. You're going to get back on the trail, put your nose back down, and then you're going to go back to your vehicle and you're going to leave. And they watch that happen hundreds of times. And you're fine if you're doing that, or unless there's a younger one there that's full of his testosterone and doesn't like you doing that. Even though the olders that were there that noticed you were fine and you never knew about them, a younger one can get gruff with you and come in and show you, hey, I'm the real deal. And you can have a bad experience that way. Or if you go ahead.
The younger ones definitely seem to have a more of your typical teenager rebellious attitude to them.
Yes, they do.
They're gonna test themselves at the same time as messing with you.
Yeah.
You know, how close can I get to them and scare them? You know, and
yeah. They have very little respect. They have very little respect for your skills in the woods. And I understand why. Watching modern hunters go out and watching people that are just babes in the woods, they believe they're the biggest, baddest thing because they got a high-powered rifle and camouflage and the latest, greatest thing. And they walk out in the woods and they truly do not have any skills. And you know, there are some that are kind of okay, but a lot of them don't. They don't have the skill set on their level. You know, I'm pretty good in the woods, and I'm not even comparable to them. You know, they have greater skill sets than I do, and I can't even keep up with them. I can just kind of, you know, I know how to provoke them. I can bring them in. I, you know, sometimes communicate with them, but their wood skills, you know, ours pale in comparison. And
they're definitely masters of their environment.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I wanted to put the word out, and I found Scott and Christy, and we went out. Scott came up here on expedition, and I was showing him how I tracked them in my area. We actually had a 3-knock warning, a 6-knock, and another 3-knock warning come out of their home area. And then this was the most significant point in my research. We went back that night and knocked, and what happened was the little one had been shot at, okay, the previous hunting season. And so that put them on edge with all humans. And, you know, and even though I wasn't a target by them, they didn't really care for me around. So Scott comes up there on Bigfoot Explorer comes up there on the show. We're doing the expedition. We get worn out. We go back that night. I do a whoop to little Sam because he's kind of my buddy. Well, I get a knock, just a faint knock. Well, we go back to our area, and we're sitting there and we're checking our audio and making sure we got everything on audio. Well, Christy Sci-Fi is on a conference call with Scott, and here comes these 2 knocks in. They came from their area to where we were camped out and gave us 2 knocks, 2 sets of knocks. They knocked where we were at right side of our camp, and then they went 100 yards out in the direction that they were at, their area is at, and did another 2 knocks. and there was no audio recording up. You know, so, but Christy heard it. So she was on the phone saying, "What was that?" I said, "That's an invitation knock. We're invited back." You know, and that was the most significant knock there, because we were just told earlier that day to get out of there as a warning. Now, if you want to make some observations of that, what caused the change? There had to be a conversation, an intelligent conversation that was had to change the mind of the big male in there, you know.
Or maybe they were in the middle of a hunt that you may have disturbed, and then they got what they needed that day and that night.
Yeah,
everything was cool. You know,
it's possible. That's
very
possible.
human thinking, logic. You know, it's very, their thought process is very human-like.
Oh, you know? Yeah, extremely intelligent. I equate them to Neanderthal, and Neanderthal was brilliant. Neanderthal had its own religion, its own burial rites. You know, it had its own beliefs, its own way of doing things. Neanderthal was not dumb at all. They were brilliant.
No, they weren't. Nope.
And I don't equate them more than that, because they live a purist, primitive lifestyle. They hate technology. You know, in my area, I can carry a knife, and I have a phone in my pocket unseen, and everything's cool. I go in there with a LED light or something, or a recorder, and they actually throw rocks at me. It's not me, it's the technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and they've figured out that technology has, and for lack of better words, corrupted the human race.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they've managed to survive for God knows how long.
Oh, yeah.
On this planet without anything except for what they get in the woods. And if they can do it, there's no reason that humans can't do it. But they change to their environment where humans change the environment to them. You know?
Yeah. And that's, exactly. But, Chris, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was asking what you was about to say.
Oh, Christy's been out in the field with me tracking. She learned some tracking, and I put her out front. You know, I don't put someone behind me teaching track. I put them out front, and let their eyes adjust. You know, the art of looking. And I'll tell you what, she got to where she was good at picking up tracks. She's calling me over there. Hey, you know, the first few might have, you know, were sketchy, you know, because if it's not 5 toes in the hill, it's inconclusive to me. I don't go out there and find an impression and say, hey, look, a track. I have to have certain criteria to label it a track, and it has to have 5 toes in the hill. It has to have a gait. It has to have a travel way where it's traveling from one area to another. And once we find a track, we'll establish a travel way, find its gait, find multiple tracks. And even on camera, I've asked, what makes foot-shaped impressions naturally that have a gait, that have a travel path, where you're finding them coming through the brush and they're in a row? What natural form forms that if it's not a beam? Because see, you can go out and track a deer, and it's a deer. You can go out and track a turkey, and it's a turkey. You can track a pig, and it's a pig. But if I find a 5-toed, 17-inch long, heel-to-toe track and trackway and pathway, oh, it's nothing. It don't exist. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, something had to make that track, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It wasn't from the dew falling off the leaves of the tree in a perfect pattern, one after the other in a perfect succession of gait. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Look familiar?
Yeah, I heard Christy. You and Christy were having a foot cast contest. Apparently, she won.
That was a creepy night. That individual that made that track, he came pushing through the brush, and the brush on me would probably be about shoulder height, and you could hear the brush clapping back together as it's pushing through it, and it's coming up, and it's making its way uphill from us, and it's only 35, 40 yards out there, and it comes up, and that's this individual she has a cast of, comes up and it steps out into a road, and this is dark, steps out into a road, and I have a 25-yard minimum that if anything closer than that, I got to have a weapon on me. I just can't help it. But, if I don't know them, and I didn't know this one, and it come pushing up, we heard it push up, heard the gravel and the weight on the gravel as it walked in the gravel, and it turned and started to come down the hill on the gravel, and it kicked a rock, and that rock broke 25 yards. And then, so, I had to put a little security in my hand. As soon as I did, it hung a sharp left, went out in the woods, kept going downhill, broke a stick. That's also, you can also find that on the internet. It breaks a stick, and then it goes out 90 yards and sitting there watching us. And and that was an intense moment. You hear one coming down and it's not that it broke 25, it's just the rock it kicked, broke. And I thought it was actually it at the moment. But yeah, that was an intense time with that individual that made that track.
Well, see, that makes Christy's track all that better, because not only does she have a witness as you, but there's also there's context to it. You saw or you heard the being that made that footstep, that footprint. You know what I mean? It's a lot different than, I was just walking out in the woods and, I found a single footprint. You know what I mean? But when you hear it come up and you go to where you heard it and find this print, it's all validated. You know what I mean? So there's context there. There's validation there. And it's very rare that you get that, Well,
she also had a thermal imager she had on her camera, and she got a thermal image of it peeking out from behind a tree. It's hard to make out, but I tracked that area. There's nothing out there that's going to make that beside that tree. There was nothing beside that tree to do it when I was there. And then at the thermal that she's pointing out there, it's actually on my Patrick Vaugn Facebook on under Other Signs album, and it's a thermal image of that individual like this out behind a tree looking at her as she was thermally and taking pictures. So we got the track, we got the thermal that I can see it in it. I don't think it, if you go there and you investigate there and you look at the tree that was there and try to recreate it, you'd have to have something standing there to have it there. And then you got the casted track. Yeah, see it?
Oh, yeah. You definitely see the tree, and there's obviously something poking out from the side. If it were just a tree, that wouldn't be there.
That's right.
So almost looks like it had one of its arms around. It did. It had a shoulder. Like the bottom of the, and it was using the tree to keep it from coming too far out,
Yeah, exactly.
I could see that from here. It's pretty obvious.
And who said Sasquatch ain't real?
I'm going to tell you what, Christy's brave, because we've been in some sketchy situations. Christy's brave. She jumped out. She jumped out the truck. She said, we got into an area. She says, there's bad vibes here. I don't want to get out. I said, I got to. You can sit here. She didn't sit there. She jumped out also right behind me, had my back.
You don't want to be left there alone. She knows,
Well, she jumped out of a safe truck and had my back as I'm tracking in the dark around this little area. And what I was tracking was in the pine brush, was in some pine saplings. just 10 feet from me, it rolled and it slid down the hill about 30 feet and took off running. And she's right behind me the whole step of the way. And I'm like, dang, girl, I didn't expect you to go through that. It was sketchy. But we've been in the field before, and she's invited to squatch with me anytime. I actually got an expedition going on in a couple of weeks in northeast Texas that I'm joining the track for, and I got a couple of good.
A lot of stories coming out of northeast Texas.
Yeah, this is just probably an hour north of the conference going on in Jefferson, Texas. So I'm threatening to go there too,
Hey, you remember that one, huh?
Yeah, we've been growled at that same place. That next night, we go to the same place where this one was rolled over and slid down the hill. I'm being rude now. I'm pulling all the stops out because we're on camera, and I want something to happen. And Christy and I are standing there about 20 yards off this wood line, and you hear this growl come in real low, real slow, real raspy. And I'm like, Christy, I think we just got growled at.
I have heard it.
Yeah, and after listening to it on audio, I'm like, yeah, that was a growl. We got growled at. It was right tucked in behind a tree, just out of sight, about 30 yards, growling at us.
And Scott's like, I didn't hear it. You was on the other side using the camera, focusing the camera, because you're not paying attention.
Let me tell you what, that weekend I tracked 4 individuals and heard 27 vocalizations from the ones that live there. Okay, it was a pretty wild weekend, but you learn a lot from doing that. You learn, what they'll do, what they won't do, and we went on several expeditions, and we never missed. We'd pick areas out using the criteria that they need for their home range, and I'd pick where they live at. We'd go there, and we would scout out their hunting areas out around their home range, and we never really missed. I mean, we always come up with an experience. I mean, even in central Louisiana, we're all standing there, and we're all, we did an experiment. I heard a mimic. I heard one mimic a canine. I won't call it a wolf, but it is a canine. And someone says, that's a raspy canine, so that's not a canine. When we get out of the tent, I'm yelling and whooping, Christy's yelling and whooping. Finally, Christy does this yell. When it comes back and it says, rah, 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 rah. And I said, that's a Bigfoot. And everybody's eyes got big, But, yeah, we've had some success. We really have. The last one in Arkansas, we're standing on a levee, and Christy and I always try to debunk everything. My mind, because I always try to debunk them, goes to the debunk thing, and I don't tell people I do that, but Christy's standing on a levee. We're all there on a levee, and she said, "Hey, there's an eye shine right there," and I'm like, "Nah, it's a light." I'm gonna push back because I want confirmation. She goes, "No, that is eye shine right there." And I'm looking, and just from my angle, I really can't see it there. But from her angle, she's definitely see it, and I believe her. And even panning behind us, there was eye shine that we didn't even see coming from behind trees. But we go back around this corner of the field, and we make this corner, and my tracking partner's with me, and I see it, but I can't get a word out. He elbows me. Oh, do you see it? It's right there. He's a little short guy, but he's spunky, right? And I'm looking at these glowing, these red eyes out there, about 100 yards, 115 yards out there. I mean, they're big and they're wide apart. And they look, and they turn, they look at us, and he looks almost right into us. We're seeing these red eyes. And of course, track partner, right there. You see it.
You see it now?
But my problem is I'm standing looking at this thing, and there's nothing between it. I see the blackness of it. I see it moving in the starlight. I see the eyes of it. I see the shape of it, and I feel very underdressed. Yeah, at that point in time, I felt a little bit like, I'm just not up to par to play with this thing. This thing is huge. This thing is massive. It has glowing red eyes. What in the world is up the glowing red eyes? And I look behind me to see where the camera is, and the camera actually has these red LED lights glowing, pointing that direction. And so, just as my observation, I really think that the light capabilities of their eyes that collect light, just because you don't see light, if you're seeing pitch black, doesn't mean there's not light. It just means that there's not light that you're perceiving. And I've had to do a lot of study on this. And so, but they can see wavelengths of light that we can't. And the IR, I really took it as, this is my opinion, is that the IR was reflecting in size the same red that was because I wasn't looking through our filter. The red is coming off the 37 IR. I mean, this is a ridiculously large IR emitter. 37 something emitters shining that way, and I'm seeing the red in its eyes. I see it twice. I see it three. It looked at me. It walked. It turned and looked at us again. It walked, looked at us again, and then when it looked away, it's gone. And I had all the fun I wanted that night. I'm like, yeah, let's get back to camp. But we've had some successful times. It's been interesting.
Oh yeah. Patrick.
Yeah, we've had Christy's had rocks thrown at us. Christy had a couple of rocks thrown at her earlier that day up in Arkansas, and then later that night, I had one whiz over my head and hit. And I'm like, that creeped me out. I mean, I've had things thrown at me, but I didn't know these. Only one time twice actually, I had something thrown at me by ones I didn't know, but I didn't know where this was. Was this right there beside me? Was it in the brush line? So to hear that rock hit creeped me out. And Christy and I and the other landowner, we go out and Christy picks it up right off. And you could figure out what rock was thrown by what was there and embedded in the dirt. Yeah. So, and I still have that rock somewhere.
The one time I had a rock thrown at me, I was going up a natural drainage, bottom of the valley of a little canyon, running down the side of a mountain. And got about halfway up, and a rock, probably a little smaller than a golf ball, landed literally 2 feet in front of me and bounced, boom. It's like, okay, I certainly didn't throw that. I didn't kick it. It came from that direction. So I picked up a rock about the same size and threw it back in that direction. I heard it hit the bushes, Well, out of those bushes, a little bit before where my rock landed, out comes this freaking softball-sized rock a little bit closer to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm good.
I don't throw rocks back, but
that was the only time I ever did it. After that, I was like, all right, I have now learned my lesson not to throw rocks back into the bushes.
I got to take a break for a second. Excuse me for a second, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I wanted to tell you was when before he got the rock thrown at him, me and the landowner was out in the field looking for some arrowheads. And we was close to the wood line that was out in the pasture, open land from their camp or whatever. And we looking, and all of a sudden I hear thud. Boom, boom, boom. I looked at it, I said, did you throw rocks? He said, no. I'm like, oh, they're throwing rocks. So I picked up a rock and I threw it back and I laughed. I went, ha, we playing games. So I went back looking for, because I really wanted to find an arrowhead,
Right.
And then I go back down again and it's starting to get a little bit dark. And I hear the dope. I said, yeah, it threw a rock again. So I picked up another rock and I threw it again. And then by the time it was getting dark, she says, are you ready to go in? And I said, yeah, I guess so. I wasn't scared, you know. So we went in, and later on that afternoon, that nighttime, Patrick wanted to go get him something to drink out of the ice chest. So he walked out, and that's when he said, what? You could hear him. Something just threw a rock at me. I wound up going outside. I said, what happened? And then the landowner came out too. Something just threw a rock at me. So we walking and looking for the rocks, and I got that feeling something's watching us. And I'm like, yeah. He wants to play. Throw rocks back. Hey, get into that part of that time we was at Kasachi in that camp when somebody had lost the key.
I will never let that down. I will never live it down.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me start off saying this. It was freezing. It was cold. We were out in the woods walking all day long. We get back to the camp, and we go look for the key. You got it? No, I don't have it. So now you leave off. You tell me the rest of it.
Yeah, I was responsible. I was the key holder.
Busted.
But I play dog a lot. I call it playing dog. You know, I go tracking. I'm just a glorified dog. That's it. And I'm in the brush. I'm on my hands and knees. I'm crawling. I'm looking, you know, putting my hands in tracks. And so somewhere along those lines in some brush pile I leave a key laying there. And when we get back, it's almost midnight. It's midnight or somewhere around midnight. I think it was 1 in the morning when we actually got in the cabin. But we get there. I have the key. We got to call the owner says, oh, I got an extra key hanging in a barn. No, you don't. So he has to come out there. He said, I don't have a key for this cabin. You had the only key. So we have to push an AC unit out of the way, out of the window. And and Christy climbs. I mean, there's a space this big between the bedpost and the window. And about that, she goes right up in there to unlock it. And I was thoroughly embarrassed. And Christy loves to bring that up.
But that night when we was going to bed, I heard something scratching on the window where I climbed through, which, if you remember, I said, I'm going to lock that window and I'm going to put that towel. I had a towel that I hung up over the window because I didn't want nothing seeing in because it was Venetian blinds. And I get freaked out with that, you know? So I locked as soon as I climbed in, and because Scott wanted to videotape me, remember, and put that in the thing, and I'm like, no. So I hurried up and slung myself through it, and as soon as I did that, I locked the window and I put the blanket back up. Well, then I heard the scratching, like, and I said, well, actually, Scott said, you hear that? And I said, yeah. I said, what the hell is that? He says, I think it's a rat. Now, mark my words. We was there how many nights? 4 nights?
Yeah. Several nights. We'd already tracked one around that cabin.
Yeah, well, that's the next morning. But what I'm about to say is, doesn't a rat usually go to the same spot and start chewing up the wood a couple of nights in a row? Am I just not knowing that, or is that the truth? Because a rat wants to make a passageway where it can run through where it needs to go, right? And then how is a rat going to drag its hand across the backside of the building? Because I told Patrick, I said, I guarantee you, I'm getting up in the morning and I bet you I'm going to find a track over there. So what happened after that?
Yeah, the thing about rats is what a lot of people don't know is when rats walk, they're leaving a faint urine trail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's how they know where to go, because they're smelling that So yeah, they're gonna go the same path, go to the same spot every time because that's where their scent leads
But
them.
they're gonna crunch on the wood every night. Since we was there those few nights, I did not hear a rat crunching on the wood. So now, Patrick, now what I was after what I said, what did I do?
Well, I can testify that the first 3 nights there, nothing crunched on wood because I didn't sleep a wink. That bed was so uncomfortable. that last night there, I laid down. I remember hitting the pillows out. And then I hear about all this the next morning. I hear one hollering, "It's a rat." She goes, "No, it wasn't," Well, then she goes outside and she's been learning tracking, So she goes outside, she comes running back in. "Hey, I got tracks." And I go out there and you can't deny them. They're tracks. You can't deny it. And I mean, they're large tracks, 18-inch tracks. And they walked around, they come around the bathroom window, took a left, walked down the side on the side of the wall that was between, her bedroom and the tracks. And it walked straight down that side and then ambered off and then headed to a woodline. And we tracked that. And so, and she said, "Yeah, I heard her fingernails on the woods outside." I said, and it's not that that's the one that we were encountering that night that followed us. I think there was new construction going on. There was tractor work going on. A lot of changes inside that little park area we were renting a cabin at. And I think anytime you start changing stuff, what is there is going to come and look. So
yes, sir.
That's the way
they're
I
going to see if they're checking to see if what we're doing is approved by them. If they don't like what we're doing, oh boy, they will make that site a living hell. They will. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've heard stories of them flipping, tractors on their sides, lifting up the side, just rolling them over on their top. Taking full 50-gallon barrel of diesel. Mm-hmm. And throwing it 75 yards with no problem.
I saw the photos of that in that book that I read when I was a kid. Inside that book, there was photos up in y'all's area. A logging crew got run out, and they had big, huge 55-gallon drums of diesel tossed, and big tracks all over the ground. And I read all that, and you know what? I threw the book down. I said, "That's hogwash."
What you think now?
But after 2003 and 2009 and 2011, the third encounter in 2011, and having 32 encounters total with 24 different individuals, and tracking these 23 of the individuals I tracked. And having 8 broadside, I see you, there's nothing between you and me. I'm looking at you and you're looking at me. 8 encounters of that between 115 yards and 6 feet. Having that happen, yeah, I believe that's exactly what happened. Those pictures are real, and it goes back to any naysayer that listens and says, "Oh yeah, no, it just can't happen." I was there. I've been there. I saw one and still couldn't wrap my head around. It took 3 encounters with one to be able to wrap my head around and say, "Yeah, it's real." So,
right. Well, we are coming up on our hour.
We can go a few more minutes if you can. If y'all can.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
I've been.
Anybody got questions for Patrick? Just put them in all caps.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've been rambling.
Oh no, that's what we're here to do. We're here to hear your stories and your encounters and the things that you have figured out in your experiences with them. So that's what we're here to do. So
everything they do and everything they don't do is just like you said with their cognitive skills. It's all common sense. All common sense.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is.
If you have someone coming, if you have someone coming into your yard and taking up a small part of your yard doing its thing, if you have a bear come in your yard and it goes halfway across your yard, sits there for a few hours, scratches it back on a tree and leaves, and it keeps doing that once or twice a month, you're okay with it. You know, it's when the bear comes in and digs a big hole and makes a den there, that's when you come and check it out. And that's why so many tent campers that are camping in tents, setting up camps in areas that people don't usually do that in, they come back with these stories of, hey, something was walking around, something pushed in on my tent.
Because they were where they shouldn't have been.
Yeah, their behavior was not observed in that area by the residents that claimed that territory.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, it just like a human being, you don't want someone coming into your yard or your house and all of a sudden, you know, building a fire or setting up a tent and just setting up shop.
Yeah.
You know, that's their home.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We don't want anybody doing that to us, and they're the same. They don't want it, you know. No, your spot is over there at the campsite. You're not supposed to be here. You know.
Yeah, and that's the warning that I've been trying to get to people. And I know I probably look like an idiot or some hokum crazy person saying these things are real.
That's a question.
I do have sound clips. If I could email them,
You don't have a YouTube channel or anything, do you?
No, I don't. Like I said, I'm just doing this to put word out. When you get into when you get word into, you know, when you get into the woods, you need to know they're real, whether you believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
I have an audio clip of young one that's 7 feet tall beating his chest, and I have an audio clip of the young one that's running and yelling as he's beating his chest. And I got it on email. I don't know if you want it, but I've never seen an orb. I've never seen an orb. Honestly, it's taken the entirety of me to wrap my head around this one subject that I was adamant didn't exist. If I saw green orbs or aliens or something else, it would just, I'm not sure I have the capacity for that, but I haven't seen any. But as far as the warning, have you been followed home or expected in your house? We have been followed. Christy and I have been followed back to our camp numerous times. The one in Mississippi, we were at, Christy got out tracking that morning, and because I told him I heard a knock, and I actually went in the camper and had a weapon in the camper, and I heard it come around the lake, the small lake there, and I told them about it, and I was told that it was my active imagination. Well, Christy got out that morning and found the tracks where it came up, and it's stamped into the sand right there. You know, and it really helps to have two trackers. You know, it does.
Well, it helps to have multiple witnesses too. Yes, we heard this last night, and yes, we all found this the next morning. It creates context. It creates validity. You know what I mean?
Whoop.
Huh?
You heard the whoops that night, remember? One was across the lake, and then it went whoop.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been followed. We were followed in several times because, you know, it makes you create a criteria of your camp area. Now I camp at least 15 miles away from where I'm squatching at. I know people that will go squatching and set camp up right there. I don't want that. You know, that I can't sleep. I get creeped out, you know. twice I had to go to sleep in my bedroll with one watching me. And that's not an easy feeling. You know, it's just not. So I pick an area now that's way away. Yeah, the X's. Yeah, we camped right next. We camped right next to an X. You know, I didn't choose the coordinates. I get there and there's an X, and then 10 feet from the X, there's a 7-foot diameter, built-up pad about 14 inches high behind a set of trees. Okay, and we're setting camp there. And I actually kind of chewed the person out a little bit that picked that coordinate. But, you know, by God, I got set up, we're going to sit here. So, you know, and we were circled for almost 3 days. And then that night, I had one come in and flip my bedroll. It came in, flipped my bedroll. I heard it coming, but I didn't know what was happening. I actually walked away from my camp and was at the fire, you know, 25 feet away at the fire, gathering my stuff to lay down. I just straightened my bedroll out, walked up to the fire. I turn and I hear it come in. I turn around. My bedroll is flipped. That's the X. My bedroll is flipped. It goes back out to 40 yards, circles around onto a ridge line, and I'm yelling at it, "Get out of here!" And he goes, "Ah!" And then, you know how you kind of get your hackles up, you know, your hair stood up, you kind of getting aggressive. You ever had all that just melt away with one, and you're like, oh, crap, you know?
Yeah, it's like you're telling him to get away, and he's like, screw you. This is my area, not yours.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Get out of here, you know?
And we went into an area that nobody went into, doing things that nobody went in there doing. In his area, we were in his living room. There was an X, and then his sofa was there. You know, his padded sofa was there, and we camped right there.
He's going, you guys didn't see the X? Come on, it's pretty blatant, you know?
Yeah.
He's just telling you, you know?
And the pad was nice and even. It was about around, I'd say 5.5 to 7 foot diameter. I didn't measure it, but I mean, it's off the ground. You know, the ground is sloping down. It didn't just, you know, nothing levels out something like that, you know, naturally. I mean, it was a pad. It was almost like a mattress, but it was round, and it was behind 2 trees, and then the X was right there 10 feet from it. And so, and there was a trail leading that came up that ridge line between the X and that pad. The trail, it was beat down to the dirt, went all the way up the hill, and it dead end into a stand of pine saplings where something could go up in there and stand in the pine saplings and watch 40 yards out to the left, a human trail that went down to the lake.
That's one thing I've noticed too, is that where they sit and watch is very militaristic.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually where a lot of trails will converge or tee off, where they can see in multiple directions from one area.
Absolutely. There's the way they move, the intelligence they move in. In Arkansas, I'm tracking a set of 6 up there, and I find where a little one is breaking off brush and throwing it in a ravine, and then taking more brush and making fences between pine saplings to make the animals veer one way or another. From one side of this area to another is kind of a clearing area surrounded by bluffs and pine thicket. And inside these pine thickets, there are, on each side is a hide. It's actually took branches and wove in, and bent trees and wove in to where you're just seeing like this. And to this side, there's an exit to where it can come out and ambush.
It's a kill box.
Yeah. So how does that naturally form? You know,
found one of those in my father-in-law's property.
Yeah.
It was a run, and they blocked it all off on the right side, and at the end it was a bunch of branches that just created a dead end.
Yeah.
There was a big hollowed out bush on the left, but on the right, all the trees were stacked into a teepee.
Yeah.
Like a teepee structure.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked at it really good the next day, and there was a trail coming through the trees right to the back of that teepee.
Yeah.
It didn't go anywhere after that.
Yeah.
It went to the teepee, and that's where it stopped.
Yeah.
They build kill boxes. They manipulate the wildlife into where they want to go, just like people do with cattle.
Yeah. Now, the flip side of that coin is I always ask people, debunk that, please. Tell me what did that. You know, I'm not the authority here. I'm going and making findings and presenting findings and saying debunk them. Because I can't. Because I'll debunk everything I can, and what I cannot debunk, I put out there. You know, so if someone can debunk, you know, and not just the big tracks, but the small ones too. You know, it's kind of like earlier this year in the spring, I had a pig hunter, a friend of my son's. My son calls up and says, "Hey, Dad, a friend of mine's real distraught." And it's Saturday night, and I'm nice and comfortable on my couch watching Star Trek. And I'm like, he says, we're going out there looking for this. And I'm like, well, you know, and I don't talk about this. So I said, you know, I have a little bit of experience in this. So if you'd like me to come along, because I didn't want to say, hey, wait a minute, idiot, don't do that. You know,
you might want to think twice about that.
Yeah. You know, so I'm like, you know, how about I come out there and I kind of help you out a little bit, you know? Well, we get out there and the young man hadn't slept in 2 days. He's there. And he walks us back to exactly where it happened, told me everything that happened. He was on the backside of a levee on a river, and all this over here is where hogs are. And he walks the farm side of the levee all the way down, and he jumps over into these woods, and he's stalking at night at 2 a.m. with no flashlight in these fringe areas that no one goes into hunting hog. Now, who'd have thought he'd run into something, you know?
Right.
So he jumps that levee, gets it 30 yards into the woods, and he hears this, and it scares him to death. He takes off running. He gets on top of the levee, and he's running this levee. And he says, what got me was when I got on the levee, that's about the time the fog hit, and I couldn't see 3 foot in front of me.
The situation's bad enough. Now the fog's got to come in and make it even worse.
Yeah.
Thanks, nature.
Yeah.
Good looking out.
It's 2 a.m. with no light. Okay, it's just moonlight and starlight, you know. And so he said the only way I knew my feet were still on the levee because I was on gravel, the little pea gravel that's on top of the levee. And he said I just kept kicking pea gravel, going the direction, kicking pea gravel, and it was almost a mile back to that blacktop. You know, well, you know, he told me all that, and he said when I got back up close to the farm, the cows and the horses go ape crap. I mean, just nuts. And he says that's when I realized what was there following me.
It was still behind him.
Yeah, he said I made it in my truck and I left, and he said what made it worse is that he had just watched a movie called Skinwalker.
Oh no.
And I'd never seen the movie. I actually had to look up the movie to see what he was telling me. He says, that's the only thing in my mind that I could think of was I got a skinwalker right here behind me. He said, that's what terrified him. That's what he went to because he didn't know anything else. Well,
that was the most recent thing that he had in his head.
Yeah. Well, we circle around the backside of the levee. We get on the riverside, and I hear these 2 boys, and we're still not using light. We're using starlight. And he goes, I hear one of them, my son turns to his friend and says, hey, do you think we should tell him about all the barefoot tracks we find down here on the river? Well, that stopped me. I said, excuse me? Because the guy's response was, well, no, those were little tracks, you know. Bigfoot has big tracks. That stopped me. Go ahead.
Bigfoot grow like humans do. They start little and they get big. Yeah.
Well, that stopped me in my that stopped me. I said, excuse me? Oh, we always find these barefooted tracks. They're on size, you know, maybe 6 inches long to 14 inches long down here coming across, you know, playing on the sandbar coming out of the river. And he said, we always just thought it was people coming down here. I said, in January, February, barefooted?
Right.
We never thought about that. He says, I know right where they're at. And he takes me down there another couple hundred yards. Coming out of the river, you can see the tracks, and they were fresh. Just coming out of the water, stepping across the sand. There was a little bitty, maybe 5.5, 6 inch track that would intermittently show up. You would find them, and then it pick back up, and you had a 14-inch track there that was carrying it. And I tracked these 14-inch tracks across this river sand up to this embankment on this levee where it climbed up the levee, and there's a bigger one with it that had a size 16.
Mama's carrying baby a little ways and then setting them down and then picking them up and moving and picking them, setting them down. And
and I said, you think this is normal? Well, we always find it here. We don't think anything about it. I said, there's a family of these beings that are living right over there. The water's shallow coming across through the sandbar. They're coming across sandbar. They're going up in here and they're hunting. And you're in here hunting at the same time. You're in here at 2 a.m. hunting pigs. Don't do that. Come here 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and then leave. Give them a chance to do what they need to do. And he was wrapping his head around it. It took him a while. But that kind of encounter is why I warn people. Just because you don't believe in them, just because you don't have any inkling that they're there, they know about you. So, and I've been saying that for 14 months now, trying to get people's heads right when they go in the woods.
From the moment you park your car at a spot where there's woods, they're watching you.
Yeah.
And you get out, you make all kinds of racket, slamming your, not only the car running, and running on gravel, the sound all that makes. Then you're in the trunk, you're getting stuff out of the back seat, you're slamming doors, bleep bleep, set the alarm. You make all kinds of noise, and they're just sitting literally 30 yards, off into the tree line behind a tree, just peeking around, going, "Oh, who do we have here?" They follow you. They'll watch you the whole way.
Oh, yeah.
It's their home.
Yeah. In my area, both their summer home and their winter home are within earshot of a rock road. They know when you come in there.
Yep. Early warning system.
Yeah.
Christy, just talk. Use your words.
I said that night where we was camping where the ex was at, he needed to go get something to eat because he's like me, hypoglycemic, bring his sugar level back up. So we went and walked. We could hear paralleling us. He says, "You hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I hear that." I said, "Just don't pay it no mind."
Yeah. I like Christy being there because she can feel things I don't.
I said it was a female. Yeah,
she's like, it's a female. It's curious. Don't worry about it. And then there's some areas she's like, I don't like this at all, but we still have to go in there and investigate. But I'm just a little more careful. I'll rein in a little bit closer, and I'll keep everybody in a bunch a little bit closer, and I'll track. And because my biggest nightmare is I'm tracking along, and I'm looking, and there's 2 sets of feet, mine and theirs. That's
right.
That's just something that I couldn't deal with.
Well, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Oh, thanks.
You know what I mean? You keep going out there, it's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Well,
and one thing I've known is that once you accept them, and they know that you know about them, they get a little bit more comfortable with you being out there, and they're more willing to mess with you.
Yeah, exactly. It changes. The woods change when they know you know. Yes,
they do. They change big time.
Yeah. The 6-foot encounter I had about 6 weeks ago, tracking at night, I didn't see their feet, but I saw their eye shine. And their eye shine was 6 feet off my left knee. And when I hit it in the face with that Q beam, I wasn't using a flashlight. I had a Q beam, and I shined it in the face with the Q beam. There's those eyes lit up, and it went from it squatted down. It started standing up. When it got eye level with me, I started backing up. It got 7 feet. I was running backwards. You know, about 10. I got about a truck length between them and I, and that's the closest I had to walking right up on them. But that still wasn't a comfortable situation.
Tell them what color the eyes were.
The eyes were bright amber with green pupils, and the pupils were about the size of my thumb, and they were about this far apart. They were about 9 inches between the eye and 7 feet tall. And the weird thing is that the light didn't refract off of them like a normal animal did. You know, I've had deer and coon and squirrels and possums, and in a headlight or on a light on them, you could still see the reflective eyes and their body. Not this. I got it at 6 feet, dead in the face with a spotlight, and all you see is his eyes. And as it slowly turned, it turned just real slow, and I'm shining on it where the head should be, and I'm not really seeing much. And as it turned its back and started to walk away, I'm shining its back, and in the brightest spot of my spotlight, I can make out shag hair. But on the outside, where it's just lit up like a normal flashlight bright would be, you can't see anything. And it took off walking and went out about 40 yards, and there was 2 of them. One was 7 foot, and the other one was about 4.5 foot. And they went out behind the brush and was standing there 40 yards out. And I said, well, okay then. I made an about face, and I slowly tracked, because I was looking on the ground. You know, that's how I noticed them. I had the Q beam on the ground, and everywhere that Q beam went, those eyes were looking. They're trying to see what I'm looking at. So I just put my Q beam back on the ground. And I start walking back out, you know, because I don't have a weapon on me. I don't even think I had I think I might have had a knife on me. That was it, you know.
Yeah, I think you told me. Yeah, you told me you had your knife. That's all you had.
Yeah.
You didn't have your gun.
Yeah, that was the closest you knowingly came to. On the one, and they may have been closer. Scary. 6 feet, and knowing they're there, that rattled me. I kind of made a U-turn and went back towards the creek. I tracked down the creek. I actually found the crossing that I was looking for at the creek. You know, their feet are that wide coming across this creek, and they're actually digging in and coming up. And I said, okay, you know, there's their crossing. And then I went back to the truck, and I was out of there. But yeah, 6 feet, that was enough for me. And I'm not scared of them, but I'm nervous because historically they were said to be, you know, if you read the Paul Kane account of him painting Mount St. Helens, you know, they were man eaters. You know, 2 braves were out hunting, and only one of them came back. And what he called a skookum, chased one down and was eating him as the brave was trying to get back to camp. And he told the story right there in the 1840s, Paul Kane account of that. And so, you know, knowing, and that's not the only historical account I've heard of that happening. And so whenever I come across one, the first thought in my mind is, oh God, I hope it ain't hungry. You know, or is that a real historical fact? You know, you got to question that also. I don't know if they do or if they don't. But the fact that it's being brought into question makes me uncomfortable. You know.
As for me, and not anybody else that would say this, I don't think Sasquatch would eat people, because there's too many encounters out there that they scare you out of the woods. There's too many, you know, that's what I think. And anybody else can think, you know, everybody has their different opinions about it. I say the other type, the gugwe, face eater, skinwalker, wendigo, they eat humans. But they can have 1 out of 100 that might kill a person, but I don't think eat it.
Well, I can't talk about other cryptids because I haven't counted any. I'm not saying that out there. I just have not come across them. What I can say is that the ones that you hear about are the ones that successfully made it out. Okay, I don't know how many didn't. So I'm not saying that that's the way it is. I'm just saying that's what's in the back of my mind whenever I'm close to one.
Right, right. Well, that's your opinion. That's right. I'm just saying that in my opinion, I don't think that they would eat people because, there's too many encounters that they throw sticks, do whatever they got to do to get your ass out of the woods. You know what I'm saying? We don't want you here.
I definitely don't think it'd be a norm. I definitely don't think that'd be their MO. But just like us, there are psychologically challenged beings, I'm sure, within their population, just like in ours. And if you have, like the skookum of Paul King's, he said they had 4 toes. Well, anytime you have, anytime I've tracked anything, it's been 5. Now, maybe they're different in there. But what there also is the possibility that inbreeding could have been part of it. And if inbreeding is part of it and you have physical deformities, you could also have emotional and psychological deformities as well, or lacks of. And so you don't know every individual, in there. I can say the ones I've come across have been peaceful. Yeah. I've been scared to death. I've had them growl at me. I've had them throw limbs at me, almost, limbs size of saplings at me, rocks. I've had them, yell and scoff at me. I've had them chase me out of the woods, but I've never, and I've thought my life was in danger, but I never had one try to take it. So I can say that. It's just that back in my mind, that sticks. To all.
Yeah, you at the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, this still shouldn't exist, but yet it does. It's always going to be in the back of your mind, just because that's where you were when this all started for you. But I think I'm kind of with Christy. I don't think they'll eat people, and I definitely think that when they're throwing sticks and throwing rocks and stuff, they're just trying to scare you to get you out of an area, maybe because there's young ones in the area, which makes perfect sense. And plus, I also think due to my personal experiences in knowing that they are very intelligent beings, that if a human goes missing, that brings more humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't want.
No.
Yeah. So they'll do everything in their power to scare you the crap out of their area before. And I think the really aggressive encounters and stuff where, I thought he was going to eat me. He was standing over me. It's probably what they call a rogue teenager who was so unruly they kicked him out of their clan. So now he's just out roaming around. He's all bent out of shape. He's all butthurt. Yeah. He doesn't know what to do with himself. So for fun, he just scares the crap out of people. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I will not conclusively say that a Sasquatch will eat a person. I cannot conclusively say that they won't, because I can have an opinion of them that I believe 99.9% of them are peaceful and will try to scare you out. There's always that 0.1 that I just don't know, because
till we see one doing it, we will never have that definitive answer. You know what I mean?
I have two short things to say. People talk about them cloaking. Oh, they cloak. I rolled my eyes in that every time I heard that until I shined the light on one and the light literally wrapped around him. I can see where they call it a cloaking. And you think that's weird, but if you think about it, a polar bear ain't white, he's black. A polar bear has translucent hair that grabs all the energy from the sun and transfers it to its black skin.
Like fiber optics.
Yeah. So who's to say what this being has? Also, so that from my eye rolling to witnessing this, well, there's something to it. That I finally witnessed something that I can say there's something to it. And there was another one, but it slips my mind now. There was 2 different instances. Oh, black trucks. I've always rolled my eyes at the black truck thing. Oh, I was in an area and I had a black truck roll up and people jumping out and this and that. I rolled my eyes at all those every time I heard that until I was on a show and they talked about it. And then the next time my tracking partner and I went out that night, we got the audio clips. We had to sit there 45 minutes because we had a black Chevrolet truck 60 yards off us. As soon as we pulled up, he pulled up and parked. And we were sitting there, and I was waiting on him to do what he's going to do and leave, and he never did. So finally, I hit him with a Q-beam. I shined a Q-beam on him. I said, "I see you, buddy." And as soon as I did that, he left. And then just
got made out.
And then just a couple of weeks ago, same thing happened. My tracking partner and I were going out in my area tracking the little one, confirming her. We pull up to the playground. There's a playground area in there that they like to go play in, and they make mud pies. They actually get under vines and stuff and make mud pies. And I got pictures of the little one's fingerprints in the mud pie. But I'm going in there to track. I pull up, and I look behind me, and there's the black Chevrolet behind me. And so I sit there. I got my foot on the brake. I wait 10 minutes. He's just sitting there 50 yards behind me on this rock road watching me. And so I just throw it in park. I'm not doing anything in front of you. And I sit there another 20 minutes, and finally he slowly comes rolling by, cuts the distance in half, and stops. He waits another 10 minutes, then he comes slowly rolling by. His windows are so tinted I can't see anything inside, and he has a ham radio antenna in the back of his truck. And he rolls slowly by, and he gets around the curve, and I looked at my partner. I'm like, my tracking partner. So what do you think about that? He said, "That guy's watching us. That's the second time, same truck." And he says, let's chase him down. So I drop it in gear, and I don't have I got a 6-liter engine. By the time I get to that curve, all I see is dust. That guy leaves out. And I'm chasing dust for 5 miles around this area. And this guy, I'm doing 60, and I'm straightening some curves. I mean, I'm Duke Hazarding it. And this guy is leaving out. He's left me behind. I never did catch up with him. That's twice. That's not a fluke. Know what I mean?
It's not.
So that's twice
It's
twice that I thought something was, inconclusive at best, hard to believe about, that was real. Turned out to be, I was wrong about it.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So I got black Chevrolet trucks with ham radios following me around. So I don't tell people where I'm going now. I don't tell them. I'll say, yeah, I'm going on an expedition somewhere north in this state. That's it. They're going to have to scour the whole state to find me. And it's hard. If you ever tried to track a tracker, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And you're dealing with some of the best trackers out in the woods. Them big hairy ones.
Oh, they're amazing. Their skill set is amazing. I've personally, what I talk about is what I've personally witnessed. I won't say it's my opinion. I've seen this. I've seen them do 40 miles an hour on a moonless night with no starlight and pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face, darkness through the woods. Okay. Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Just
I've seen them. Yeah, they can pick you out at 460 yards. You can have camouflage on, hiding in the bush, and they're going to pick you out at 460 yards on a moonless night in a rainstorm. They can pick you out.
Yep.
So, their capabilities are amazing.
Be way beyond anything else out there. That is for sure.
Yeah.
What?
I do want to say, what Sharon was asking us earlier about the three scariest encounters. I have to say that the scariest one was when we was in what was it? What was the expedition where you had the? We were standing there. That was Kasachi, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Kasachi.
Kasachi. Yeah.
Yeah, Kasachi, where it was walking up on the gravel. We heard it walking, and you pulled me back, and that was an intense moment.
Yeah.
That was not fun.
Well, I try to make sure. I try to make sure I'm the first one in, the last one out. Everybody makes it.
Like, wow, that was my scariest time, you know.
And you're pretty light. I think your feet came off the ground.
I think I did. I think I ran. Like when you were like, I was like, what? Yeah. I heard it walking on the gravel. It was like, oh, it's on the other side of the car. Nah, I don't think so.
Well, that rock broke 25 yards. All I could do was get between you and it.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, it's been sketchy times.
My scariest encounter was up in Big Bear, California. I no longer go to this area, but I had just picked a direction, went up the hill, started walking. Again, I ended up in a natural drainage coming down the hill, and the whole atmosphere in this area was very on edge.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of signs. There was fake fire pits. There were, leaners. I found a structure. I had gone up the hill. I had gone down into the first valley, went left a camera, came back up to the structure, and went up and over into the next valley. And that's where I put a 360 game cam. Because I know that they love to come up behind game cams, screw with them from behind the tree, and then go do what they got to do. I'm going, okay, you ain't going to hide from this one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, set all the cameras out, went back to the hotel. My wife was sicker than her dog, and she asked me to go get something out of the car for her. Now, we're in a hotel out in the woods. We are surrounded by woods, and I'm in this dinky little parking lot with no cars, but it has these islands that separate the parking stalls. They're all gravel. And I'm leaning over into the back of the car, getting her what she needed, and I distinctly hear through the gravel. A chill went up my spine as if something was standing directly behind me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to kill someone right now because I feel like my life is in danger. Turn around. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But there was a mound of gravel in one of these islands with a single stick stuck in the top of it.
Claiming that spot.
So we went next morning. I'm just going to go out, grab my cameras real quick, and I'll be back, because my wife is sick. She's sitting in the car with the dogs by herself in this parking lot in the heat. I go up, I find the first camera perfectly, no problem. I thought I had put the second camera further down the valley when I had actually come back up and put it in the next valley down. Couldn't remember that. Whole section of memory missing from my brain. Whole section. I literally had to watch my own videos to figure out what I did. Once I did that, I went back 5 weeks later. That whole spot up into the next valley, completely barricaded with giant logs that were literally 100 feet long and 4 feet thick. Couldn't get through it. And I'm going, I guess I'm not getting my camera back.
Yeah.
So I'm going, screw this. I want my camera. I paid a lot of money for that. I had brand new batteries in it. It had a brand new 64 gig SD card in it. I want my camera back. Get halfway up and I hear this snap 10 feet to my right. And I just put my hands up. I'm going, okay, buddy, we got a problem here. I want my camera. So either you can go get it for me and I'll wait here patiently, or you can let me back there to go get it. But we're not done with this, no matter the outcome of this instance right now. And that's when the pebble came thrown out. I threw it back, and a bigger rock came. Okay, we're cool. You can have the camera. Never got it back. Still out there. So, and the reason I don't go out there, and I'm not saying this is because of Sasquatch, but directly in the middle of that area I was in shortly afterwards, 2 local people were found dead of mysterious circumstances. And the whole thing went quiet through social media. Everything was erased almost immediately when special investigators were assigned to the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
So I don't know if it was something else or them, but apparently they were doing something out there that they shouldn't have been doing. So
yeah. Well, also, I have a theory, a working theory. Over here, you might have, 38,000 acres or 54,000 acres. Some states will have, they consider the whole thing, say Mississippi has 800,000 acres of WMA, but you'll have it 30 here, 20 there, 60 there. These beings know they're surrounded by us. Okay. And out west, I've been out west in the Rockies, and Wyoming, Colorado, the BLM land. You have land out there that goes for miles. They actually surround y'all more than you surround them, and so I think they feel a little more free to do the things that they need to do. If they need to kill someone for a reason, they can and get away with it. Opposed to my area, if someone gets killed up here in my area where I track at, there's going to be a huge thing. There's going to be dogs out. There's going to be people out, and those beings know that they are kind of captured there.
Right.
So
right.
That's a working theory of mine. I have not proved, but that's just.
I definitely feel the same. That geographical location definitely depicts the things they do and don't do, and how they respond to certain things. You could have, a Bigfoot on the East Coast throw a rock at somebody, they throw it back, and they think it's a game.
Yeah.
Whereas here on the West Coast, like I did, a rock was thrown, I threw it back, and a bigger rock got thrown. Yeah. I kind of got, okay, don't make me throw the big one because I'll hit you with it. You know what I mean?
But on a social science level, you can make observations of what you're talking about.
Right.
They have a, that being had a sense of fair play and fair justice.
Right.
But
okay, you want to throw rocks back? I'll throw a bigger one. It's like,
absolutely.
We're cool. I'm done.
Yeah. And I had people tell me, well, geographically they're different here than they are in your area. Well, scientifically, I can't confer either way, but in my area, whoever taught those for knock, I had the best teacher for knock from them, because they have set criteria and standards to their knocks, and even right to where which direction their toes are pointing when they knock. Very, very, very methodic. Now, I went to Mississippi doing knocks in an area, and they act like they had no rules. They're like, what's a knock? They were yelling. They came up and said, whoop, on a knock, and one of them actually grabbed a stick and hit a knock, but that was the only knock that came in. They were whooping. They were going, whoop, and it's almost, so it's different.
I think it's for the knocks. I think if it's like even just a single soft knock could mean something different as a big whack
It
single
is.
soft, knock.
It does. It absolutely, in
So
my area, it absolutely does. And
to us, it's the same thing,
yeah,
but to them, because it's their language,
yeah,
it's different. Okay, this little knock means this, but if I,
yeah,
it's like urgent, 911
yeah.
kind of text message, Bigfoot texting, you know what I mean?
It
So,
is. Yeah, I have witnessed part of that, and just last week I had a buddy of mine that was camped in Oklahoma called me up. He says, "Man, I'm a little freaked out. They're throwing acorns. They're walking behind my camper. They're doing things." And I said, and he's in an improved area. Now, if you're in their area, you don't do that. But if you're in an improved area that is your domain and they're doing that to you and they're trying to intimidate you, I told him, I said, man, walk out there to the axe handle, yell to him, get out of here, and hit that tree 3 times and do it 3 times, 3 times, 3 times. And he's like, well, what will that do? I said, that'll send a warning. So he steps out there and he goes, I hear him. I told him, don't hang up the phone, put it on speakerphone, put the phone down and go do it. He steps out of his camper 20 feet to a tree, goes, get out of hell. Pow, pow, pow. Pow, pow, pow. Pow, pow, pow. He said, the one that was in the brush took off running. He said it was quiet the rest of the time he was there. And so, they will push you. They will try to intimidate you. It's not your land. It's their area. It's just that you pay a government to live on a piece of land that's in their area. And that's
right.
how they do it. They don't look at boundary lines. They have their own boundary lines they look at. And so, but
Right.
if I'm in an improved area, I will tell them to get out. I don't do it much. I won't do it much because there's always that chance one of them's going to turn around and go, yeah.
Screw you.
And it could go real bad,
You're going to get that country boy one going, then there's fighting words, son.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm careful. I've only used that. I think I've used that 3 times now. But it was out of desperation. I was in the woods. I was in my area. It was coming in on me. I didn't want it coming in on me. It was going to turn into a bad situation. And it was better to use 3 knocks than it was to use gunfire. Because I don't want to kill one. So go ahead.
One thing I've learned and stuff about them is there's the one you see, but there's one on either side of you that you don't see.
Exactly.
You shoot one, you ain't coming out of them woods alive. I guarantee you that.
Exactly.
I can guarantee you that. So
exactly. I've said that same thing to people that want to go out and kill them. I could. I know where 6 families live right now. I could go out and set up something and kill one, but I don't think I'd make it out, and I certainly wouldn't make it out with a body.
No way.
You'd hear gunshots, and you see on the news, well, this truck was abandoned here in the woods.
People have been out in the woods for the last month searching for a body, and nothing's ever been found.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd never be seen again.
That's why in the second encounter, when I'm sitting there in a box stand on the ground and one sniffing at my door, I had people, even my oldest son said, why didn't you shoot? Because what happens if I shoot and it takes a minute for it to die and I don't survive that minute? Or there's another one out there with it, and I shoot it, and then you got a dead squatch and a missing man, I mean, if I pull the trigger, the one you don't see or 2 you don't see, you're not getting out. And I got a 12-year-old in a box stand a quarter-mile away,
Yeah. And you know what? You pull the trigger, you drop one. The 2 you don't see, do a call, and then all of a sudden you got another 5 or 6 coming in on you.
Oh yeah.
Aside from those 2 that made the call and came in to screw with you already, you're done. I
tell you, one of the dumbest things I did, and the audio never made it on air. Christy and I and another person is in Mississippi, and I'm doing single knocks. And I know they don't really respond to single knocks, but if you go into an area and you take what one clan knows as a system, you could probably teach it to another clan as communications. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Well, finally, I'm like, you know what, this ain't working. So I hit 4 knocks. I don't know what 4 knocks does, but I'm a dummy. I'm gonna use 4 knocks. Bam, 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 bam. You heard whoop, all the screaming, and then every being around there came into that area and was calling, and they came within 30 yards whooping. Whoop 30 yards. Shaking acorns off the trees that close, going whoop, and yelling and screaming. I had a couple of knocks come in on 4 knocks. So, and I'm still not sure what that means. I used it one time, and I don't want to use it again.
Well, if you were in trouble out in the woods and you wanted to get someone's attention, but you were so hoarse from yelling and screaming, but you had this stick, what would you do? You'd beat on a tree, bam, 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 as an emergency call. So I bet that's exactly what it was, given your experience after doing that. That was, I'm in trouble, help.
Oh, every being around.
I'm in trouble, help. Or,
hey, that does make sense. That does make sense. That does make sense.
My thoughts, but given your experience and what you did and how they reacted.
Well, I know in my area, 1 is, hey, I'm here.
Hey, I'm here. Right.
2 is, hey, I'm here, and so should you be.
Right.
And then the 3rd one is danger warning, get out of the area. And
so 4 must be help or I'm in trouble, help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the cavalry comes. It's a cavalry call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I tell you what, it was a fire brigade. It was a bucket brigade. Every being came in there, and I didn't know there was that many in there because it actually spooked me. We were right by the truck, thank God. And I'm like, holy crap, there's so many. We got them on the left. We got them on the right. We got them 200 yards
surrounded.
Back. We had 200 yards back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're screaming. Yeah. Damn, you just gave me chills, girl. Why didn't you use that in the wood?
I didn't know.
Yeah, that one gives me chills. We've heard that many times.
Yes.
I bet that's exactly what 4 knocks is. Every time I've ever been out doing knocks, I do 1 single knock.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be pretty effective.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I did it was in northern Idaho, and bang! I swung this freaking log with everything I had, and it cracked, and it just echoed. And about 2 hours later, it probably came in sooner, but 2 hours later, I'm sitting there with the flashlight doing scanning, and I get these 2 big, bright, I shoot about 8 feet up next to a tree that V's out.
Yeah.
And as soon as my light hits it, you could see it do this number.
Yeah.
It turned its head to the left and down, but not so much as to where it couldn't turn its eyes and keep sight of me. And it froze. And I remember I got my night vision sitting right here, so I got this flashlight on it. I click it on, and I'm looking through it, and that's when I could see the silhouette. Before, I could just see the eye shine.
Yeah.
Like you said, you could see the eye shine, and you can't see nothing else. Now I can see the silhouette, and at its shoulders, where the tree V's out, the tree itself is 3.5 feet wide, and I could see its shoulders about 6 to 8 inches on each side.
Yeah.
Yeah. A guy came down to it was like a Mexican standoff. It got to a point to where it's like, okay, who's gonna move first? And without turning the night vision off, I got this feeling like I need to let this thing go because it's about to get really bad.
Yeah.
And I had the night vision up. I clicked the flashlight off, and as soon as I did that, it was just a black flash to its left, up a game trail. I heard the neighbor's dogs barking. I heard a branch break, which I found. And about 3 seconds later, I hear one single gunshot blast.
Oh, no.
Boom.
No.
I don't think they were shooting at it, but I think they have traveled through this person's yard to get to areas, and they knew about them. He was sitting on his porch, and he gave off a pot shot to scare him.
Yeah.
Now, the people in northern Idaho are really weird about it. Everything I wear has something to do with Bigfoot. We were in a grocery store. The cashier said, "Hi, I like your shirt." And I'm all, "Yeah, you got any stories?" And she immediately clammed up. Clammed up, face down, her scanning the groceries went triple time. Get him out of here.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. They know about him. They coexist with him, but they're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, really weird up there with people in that topic, but I think that is definitely what happened. It took off. The dogs next door heard it, barked or smelled or heard it, broke the branch going through, and then and I could tell you exactly where, because the trail would have come out across the dirt road right through somebody's backyard. I could tell you exactly where it was, and that's exactly where it sounded like the gunshot came from. So,
So someone's fed up with them up there.
Yeah. Maybe they have a chicken coop or something like that in the back that's been raided. You know what I mean? I don't know the scenario, but
I've never pulled a trigger on one. I've had a weapon in my hand a few times, but I've never pulled a trigger on one. I hope I don't ever have to. I equate it to the first people who started seeing great white sharks. Right? Now, here it is. 2020. And here it is, 2020. People at free dive with great white sharks learning about their behavior and and everything about them they can to help them as a species and to understand how to keep the species from colliding. And so I equate, as maybe ridiculous as it sounds, that I'm trying to study them to keep people from colliding with them, for people to have respect for them, just like you have to. You don't go in the surf with a black wetsuit in murky water, surfing.
Looking like a seal out there for him.
Yeah. So I try to tell.
How fun is that?
Yeah. I try. There's people that are missing limbs because of that.
I don't go in the ocean because there's great white sharks. They catch them off the piers. The piers go 100 yards, 75, 100 yards out into the water. They're catching 6-7 foot great white sharks right off the pier. No, that's cool. They can have the water. I ain't going in there.
Well, eventually, these beings are going to be on camera, and they're going to be studied just like these great white sharks. Eventually, there's going to be behavioralists saying, "Okay, don't do this when you go into the woods. Don't do that when you go in the woods." So that's kind of the study that I'm pushing forward. And it's not about me; it's about the community and them.
Right.
Being safe, respectful,
Yeah. I'm starving. I had dinner.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're about to wrap this show up. We're going on 2 hours.
I'm so sorry it took so much time. I didn't.
No,
Well-
that's okay. But that's what.
That's absolutely fine, and I'm sure we barely even scratched the surface with some of your encounters. So we'd love to have you back if you're willing to come back in
Anytime you want.
the future.
Anytime you want.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Well,
Been
thank
very,
you.
very interesting, and it's good to hear someone's perspective from someone who absolutely didn't believe in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but to see the turnaround that individual did, you know, with his encounters and his experiences with them. So awesome, awesome, awesome. So
Thank you, Patrick, for
No
your
problem.
story and tracking and learning a lot of different things from you. Hopefully, future expos.
We can still go out. You're invited.
Yeah.
You're invited in a couple of weeks.
better make it happen, Christy.
Oh yeah, I gotta be out in those woods, man.
Someone's got to document it.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not the camera person, so.
Well, you're a computer person now, so it's time to step up to the next level and be a camera person too.
Come in, that's something I have to get the show started. but I learn from my mistakes.
We all do. So did the Bigfoot.
If there's 100 ways, if there's 100 ways how not to do something, I find it.
Right?
Yep.
Everyone learns from their mistakes, even the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot that was paralleling you and trying to head you off at the pass. He learned something that day. Or she learned something that day.
Yeah.
She learned that humans are a lot faster than they look.
I was moving.
Oh yeah.
I bet.
I was, yeah. It's been great, guys. I appreciate the platform y'all provide. I think y'all do a professional and great job at providing platforms for people to come out and say, hey, this has been an experience and this is how I perceive it. So thank y'all.
Well, you know, I mean, we can't. There's such a wide variety of experiences associated. At this point in time, we'd all get a lot further along in this topic if we all work together.
Absolutely.
Instead of just saying, "Oh no, this is what I experienced, so that's the way it has to be."
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, because they'll throw you through a loop every time you go out there.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
they will keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
For sure. No.
And thank everybody for joining us for the show. We appreciate y'all hanging with us.
Sticking with us for 2 hours. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you, Squatchaholic, for your wonderful moderator skills.
Yes.
And I don't know what's going on next weekend yet.
That's in the making.
All right. So right now it's a big question mark.
Yeah, it's a big question mark, but I'm going to pull the person in.
All
This
right.
is another experience. You see, that's what I like. That's why I like this show. Because like you said, we give everybody equal opportunity to tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Different experiences, different ways, different areas, different altitudes, different elevations, different people.
That's the thing. Instead, you could take something from the East Coast and something from the West Coast. It's very similar, but there's slight little differences.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So they're similar, but they're different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they have a handbook of, okay, this is what you should do, but it's okay if you stray a little bit and put your own twist on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
yes.
It's interesting to hear everyone's stories and how similar they are from one side of the country to the other, even into Canada, even in Australia. You know, I mean, all over the world. these stories are coming out, and they're all very similar, as in the interaction with them or what they did, beating on the tree or throwing a rock or whatever it is. There's similarities, and it's really interesting to hear all that.
I think I saw a Sasquatch. I think it's black. I don't know. I can't tell. It's gray or black. I don't know.
You've been waiting all night to say that.
Who are you calling Bigfoot? My name is Daryl.
My name is Daryl.
My name is Daryl.
Not Bigfoot. What did you call me?
And I bet if time comes and we could sit down and talk with one, and if you said Bigfoot, that's exactly what its reply would be. Who are you calling Bigfoot? My name is Daryl. Because if you think about it, their feet and their size, it's all proportioned.
No,
we call them Bigfoot because they're bigger than our feet. You know what I mean?
You sit up there and say, excuse me, Bigfoot. My name is not Bigfoot. My name is Wilfred.
Who knows? My name is Danny. You know, who knows?
Oh, wait, hold on. Tony, you're just joining us? Where have you been, Tony? I love Tony. From Cryptids.
I know.
Where have you been? You're about to come to the end of the show.
He was napping.
Oh, yeah.
He was napping.
So. Well,
everybody,
we would like to say y'all have a good night from Daryl.
Everybody, Patrick does not have a YouTube channel to go to, or do you have a Facebook that some people can see some of the stuff on?
Yeah, I have Facebook, Patrick Vaugn, VAUGN, Patrick Vaugn, on Facebook.
Yeah, check out some of his stuff.
And he's also on the Bigfoot Explorer if you want to see how we did the expeditions, you know. So it shows us in action.
And we will definitely keep track of you. For sure.
Well, I'll be tracking him, all right.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you again.
And so will Daryl.
With new expeditions and findings and all that good stuff. So
instead of finding Bigfoot, we could call it Finding Daryl.
You know what? It would probably be a little bit more believable show than Finding Bigfoot.
I'm telling you.
Or
Expedition Daryl.
Right?
Why not just call it Into the Unknown? I dropped Daryl on the floor. Sorry, Daryl.
It's funny because you see all these TV shows and stuff, and it's like, oh, we're out here to find Bigfoot, and it's like, dude, Bigfoot's already found you since you left the damn parking lot. You just so out there with all your camera crew and everything, and your lighting and your microphone that you don't realize that they're all around you watching you, going, what are these people doing?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah, they hear you coming.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful, blessed night, blessed week, whatever. Oh, yeah, we got another hurricane supposedly headed this way, so we'll pray that it veers off.
Enough with the hurricanes already.
Yeah, I'm sick of it. I'm ready for the cold air and put like 20 jackets on and freeze to death, okay? It's sick of hurricane.
It's been 52 here.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I was in the woods this weekend hunting, and it's been 50s and 70s.
Oh, you're so lucky. Well, it got cool last night. I tell you what, I was a little bit chilly. We did have a little fire last night.
At night here, it's been like 70s and 80s at night.
But you got dry weather. You're California. You got the good weather. We got the hot box and, you know, somewhat not so cold, but little people like me, we freeze all the time. So
this is gonna be my first winter from beginning to end out in my area. It's gonna be interesting to see how more active or less active they get. with the weather.
No problem.
I've noticed a difference between the local population of people going out there because it's been so hot. There's been a lot less people out there, and I've noticed because of that that the interactions have been a lot better.
Yeah.
So interesting. So I'm
Well,
excited.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I've paid attention. Like our big surge is right now. That's our big surge. And
Same thing in northern Idaho. It's October, November in northern Idaho.
But as soon as no one really hunts past noon.
Right.
People do their stuff and they get out of the woods. So afternoon time, about a couple hours before dark, that's when they come back in. You share the area. You really do.
Yeah.
So it's been
everybody.
Huh?
Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure, Patrick. We'll keep in touch with you. Christy.
Kevin. Patrick.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank both of y'all.
And let's all quit calling him Bigfoot and call him at least Daryl.
Daryl!
Daryl!
I want a shirt that says Daryl Hunter.
Just like this, underneath it says Daryl Hunter.
No.
Yeah.
No. I got one perfect for you. Don't shoot my Daryl.
That would be a good one too. Well, everybody, we'll see you all next week.
Okay.
Same place, same time.
Yes.
Don't know who yet.
I will let you know.
We're flying by the seat of our pants right now.
Yes.
But that's all right. That's all right. So,
all right.
everybody.
Have a. Don't shoot my Daryl. I'm going to leave it on that note. Y'all have a blessed night. Y'all two stay. Good night, everybody.
Good
See
night.
you till
Good
next
night.
week.